Hey, here we are back again on It's Your Call, heard exclusively on btrradio.com. By the way, if you want to listen on your smart speaker, just ask Alexa or Google to play Blast the Radio. Just that simple. I already feel like today's show is a success. The first text in says as follows. Good news. You won in our daily draw. Grab your treat here. Ooh. Ooh. I mean, it's not my chance to date a Russian girl, but that's pretty cool, right? I call that a win. We would love to have your input on this show. It is my daily search for common ground. Welcome to the show. Mahadi, Terry's with us, Chrissy as well. Craig's here. Franciscus Van Boxtel is on YouTube. Yes, you can follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook. My preferred, by the way, if you can, if you're so inclined, is to follow us, at least as far as the video content of the show is concerned, on a platform called Twitch. Twitch.tv/BTR Radio. Here's the cool thing. If you want to support the show and you have Amazon Prime, if you subscribe to our channel on Twitch, it doesn't even cost you anything above and beyond what you're already paying. And Amazon will send us $5 a month on your behalf. So twitch.tv/BTR Radio, if you would. Hello, Richard. Hello, Mike. Hello, Jules. I got a question today as it pertains to Canadian content. CBC is back at the trough asking for more money. Bill C-11. So we're going to talk Canadian content in just a bit. I want to get to some listener letters from yesterday, right out of the gate. Here we go. Hi, Milkman. My son and I listen to your show with Lowell regularly and faithfully. Wanted to tell you how proud we are of you. Your show was brilliant yesterday because, like Lowell, you were talking about things we didn't know. Thank you for doing what you do. I look forward to listening to you again later today. Tell Lowell for me he's too young to retire, but hopefully he'll come back and guest host sometime with you again soon. Jamie. That invitation was absolutely extended to Lowell. Whether he does or not, that'll be entirely up to him. Lowell is always welcome here. Another email from Deborah regarding yesterday's topic. She says, the workers need to get back to work and stop whining. This is a strike about money, not the students. Shame on the workers for using the students as leverage. A dedicated Lowell Green listener from Cape Breton Island. Ooh, fantastic, fantastic. The address again says, Craig, yep, twitch.tv/btrradio.com. If you just go to itsyourcall.ca or btrradio.com, just click on the Twitch icon. It'll take you there. And again, if you've got Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to our channel and they'll send us $5 a month on your behalf. Easy peasy. And thank you, by the way. And finally, a note from Sarah says, caught your show today. What a great idea. Watching your show, I think of my dad who still loves Lowell and him sitting in the backyard listening to his portable crank radio. I would always make fun of him growing up and never understood why he would listen to him. But after your show, I've decided you are going to be the next Lowell Green of my generation. Yes, Sarah, thank you. I'm going to be that next person that, why do people listen to that guy? I don't know if I'm that person. I am my own person, obviously. I am on a search for the middle ground, the common ground. We got a lot of things that we need to fix. Look at the elections that are going on in the States today and how divisive that is. That's where we are in this planet right now. No right, no wrong. We're just trying to sort of, I don't want to be more right than you. I don't want to be more wrong than you. I want to have a conversation with you. So you're invited to that conversation. New number for the show, by the way, 613-604-6464. Or if you'd like, if you go to itsyourcall.ca, remember there's no apostrophes in internet names. So itsyourcall.ca. There's actually a little camera icon and you can actually join us via video. There you go. If you're not comfortable being on video, but you want to use that option, just turn your camera off. So how much do you value Canadian content? That is the question today. Post your comments, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, etc. And I ask this because the CBC is back at the trough. They are asking for another $42 million. That's $21 million for each of the next 2 years, on top of what we already give them, by the way. This is for what they are calling pandemic recovery funds. Okay? We're already giving the CBC, you and me, the taxpayer, already giving CBC $1.2 billion per year. Do you feel you get $1.2 billion worth out of the CBC? Now, they can sell ads on the TV side of their operation. They cannot sell ads on the radio side. However, here's something to think about. CBC does very well in the podcast realm. They create a lot of podcast content and they monetize that. We don't hear a lot of conversation about it, but they have a revenue stream there that they didn't have before. That's kind of my point with bringing that up. So the larger question is, what do you, if you value Canadian content, if you think the CBC has a place, what should that look like? We got to save some money on this. $1.2 billion a year. Do we do away with the local TV stations and the local radio stations, English and French? Keep in mind, right? In every market, you've got 2 TV transmitters and 2 radio transmitters. You know, that's a lot of hydro. That's a lot of real estate. Do we do away with the local stations and just make them all repeaters for 1 English and 1 French? And everything that's on the TV is also on the radio. Do we scrap terrestrial altogether? And do we make CBC strictly an online platform? Is that how you want it to look? Because if they can't make do at $1.2 billion, that's scary. That's scary. Let's get to some of your comments, and I'll keep going on my rant here. Mike says, are you going to be sending us notifications on Facebook? Mike, Facebook has changed the way they do that. I do post, usually around noon every day, a link to the show. So if you're following either me or the BTR page, you should see that pop up. You've actually got to, it acts like an event, like a concert. And you guys, you got to click interested, going, etc. I don't know why Facebook's fooling around with doing stuff. All right, Joshua says the CBC is asking for money for something the majority of Canadians don't want. Okay, this is what I'm trying to get to with this conversation, Joshua. Thank you. We don't just need CanCon. We need good CanCon. It needs to sink or swim. Okay, I'm going to come back to that, Joshua, with some of the thoughts I have on this. Thank you for that comment. I appreciate that. He's on Facebook, by the way. Donald says, you want something to think about? Doug Ford don't want to give teachers raise, but his workers a $1,600 raise. Okay, not the topic today, Donald, but there you go. You've been heard. Terry says, I actually saw a good Canadian show on CBC Sunday night called Moonshine. All right, over to YouTube. Let the CBC fundraise by themselves. Let their radio division pay for their TV services. All the CBC is a propaganda machine for the Liberal government as of late. We should defund the CBC. All right. I got a notification, says Terry. So there you go. I don't know. Facebook's doing weird stuff. Y'all figure it out. I get the show on the air. Beyond that, I don't know. I hope you tune in. You know what? Go to Twitch. That's the answer. Go to Twitch. Twitch will notify you when we're coming on. Just stop the CBC funding and let them sink or swim in their own merits, says Glenn. Kim says, John, I can't always listen live meetings. Are these being recorded? Kim, absolutely they are. You can circle back to my Facebook page, the BTR Facebook page, Twitch, YouTube, and you can also go to podcast. So the same podcast feed that Lowell Green had, I've taken that over for now. So the question I have for you is, how much do you value Canadian content? So there's the CBC side of things, but it's also a conversation that a lot of Canadians are paying attention to right now because of Bill C-11. And we've discussed this. This is basically, for lack of a better word, it's the internet censorship bill. And a lot of people fear, because they haven't defined in this bill what Canadian content is under this bill. They want to make sure that Canadian content on the internet exists, much like they do on radio and TV. I can't speak as much to the TV side of things and the formulations for what is Canadian content and what isn't. I come from a radio background. I can tell you this. On Canadian radio, 30% of what you hear has to be Canadian content. Newer stations, in order to beg for the license, have had to commit to 40% Canadian content. I promise you, record sales are not really a thing anymore, so let's not use that term. But music sales overall, whether it's Spotify, Apple, they do not amount to 30 or 40%. Look at your own CD and, music collection. It ain't 30 or 40%. If it is, well, you're doing better than me. It's somewhere around 8, 9, 10, maybe 12%. So here's Bill C-11 wanting to make sure that the content on the internet that you see is Canadian content. Well, what is Canadian content? Well, we haven't figured that out yet. So the bill right now has passed the House of Commons. It is in the Senate. Now, under this bill, Canadian content creators, and that's anyone, by the way, you, me, anybody who posts anything to Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc. Oh, they say they're not going after the average person. Okay, well, then put that in writing. They haven't. Do you prefer to see the Canadian content first in your Google search? Or do you just want to see the best content? You want to, do you want your Google to give you the same search results as your friend in Ogdensburg, New York gets when they type Google in? Or when you're at your winter home in Florida? Does it matter to you? Is it important enough that this be forced to the top of your search engines? Digital First Canada claims that 40,000 content creators actually wrote and sent letters to MPs when the bill was being read in the House of Commons. Digital First Canada claims that those 40,000 letters were ignored. Here's what Google and YouTube have to say about it. That this is going to force feed you and I only government-approved content. Again, it hasn't been defined, so these questions get asked. Heritage Minister Pablo Rodriguez, this falls under his portfolio, claims that Google and YouTube are, quote, trying to intimidate Canadians. By the way, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation says this bill should be scrapped. Today's Globe and Mail, FYI, has an article with input from Canadian stand-up comics, Canadian TikTok creators, even a mother who has a side business posting skateboard videos. They're all saying, in order to have a chance, even though they're in Canada now, in order to have a chance to continue making their income, they would have to move stateside. So just what are the criteria for what's going to be Canadian content on the internet? And can you imagine posting something as innocuous as you doing, your yoga workout and you're singing a song on TikTok, and suddenly you're getting contacted by TikTok saying the CRTC has some questions for you. Are you Canadian? Prove it. Are you wearing Canadian-made clothes? I don't know. Is that part of the criteria? I'm being facetious. I think we don't know what's going to qualify as Canadian content. So, the Canadian content regulations, by the way, which came into play long after the Guess Who ever broke into the States, they did pretty well without Canadian content regulations, right? And they're very proud of that. But were our Canadian content regulations not designed to help ensure that Canadians, artists, producers, writers, etc., had an equal opportunity to be seen and heard amongst the sea of American, British, Australian, and other worldwide artists? Was that not the intent? I believe it was. By the way, your calls are welcome. 613-604-6464. Got some text rolling in. We'll get to that too. Does the internet not, by its very nature, not already ensure a level playing field? Americans don't really have an advantage as far as content, not the average person. Perhaps they do if they're getting into some heavy-duty filmmaking and using the internet as a platform to put it on. But for the average person, creating content like mine, okay, I'm doing this from my home. I got a home-based studio here. They want to regulate me. Well, if you're doing any sort of chat on Facebook, you're initiating the content. You are a content creator. Will you have to fall under some sort of, I don't know, Canadian content regulation? So here's what kills me, by the way. All right. The way the formula works out for what is Canadian content as it pertains to music. You may have seen a maple sticker, MAPL. It's a round circle, MAPL. Music qualifies as 1 point. So 2 out of 4 have to be satisfied. The music has to be written by a Canadian. The artist has to be Canadian. Production has to be Canadian, not producer, but the production and lyrics. So as far as production, and I underscored that for a reason, David Foster's a Canadian. He produces an album for Celine Dion. Celine Dion gets a point for being a Canadian artist. David Foster is a Canadian producer. But if they produced it in New York, they don't get the production credit. Crazy, right? Remember Bryan Adams? marching to the House of Commons. Excuse me? Actually, it was the CRTC offices. Excuse me. You've told the world that I'm not Canadian. How in the hell am I not Canadian? Well, Mr. Adams, you, sir, are Canadian, but some of your music is not. How in the world is some of Bryan Adams' music not Canadian? Well, because the music or the lyrics or the production not written by Canadian, not done by a Canadian. However, you know the band Heart, Barracuda, Crazy on You? Yeah, they're from Seattle, Washington. Do you know most of their early stuff is 100% Canadian content? Don't you feel Canadian when you hear Heart? Shania Twain, by the way, has some music that's not Canadian content. Aerosmith. Love Aerosmith. Great band from Boston. A lot of their music's Canadian content. They record it in Vancouver. Hey, and that's awesome for the industry. But do you feel Canadian when you're listening to Aerosmith? Or Frank Sinatra? I Did It My Way is written by Paul Anka. Okay, I think we all know that. But do you want to fly the flag when you hear I Did It My Way? Does that make you feel Canadian? Until the announcer comes on and says, hey, by the way, that was written by a Canadian. Rod Stewart, another artist who's a lot of his music is considered Canadian content. Oh, Canada. He's from Scotland. I mean, Pat Benatar, Lenny Kravitz, Rascal Flatts, Bonnie Raitt, Nazareth, Counting Crows, Hootie and the Blowfish, Alice Cooper. So how much do you value Canadian content? Let's not forget, too, how upset we all get as Canadians when we watch the Super Bowl. Oh, can I even say that term? When we watch that big American football championship game and we can't see the American commercials. Or, the Canadian stuff is forced upon us. Daniel Lanois produced U2, says Chrissy. Absolutely. Some of their stuff is Canadian, but Bryan Adams isn't. So they haven't defined what this is going to be. By the way, some of us on the internet, yours truly included, are trying to pick up and do some of the work that is not being done by the conventional broadcasters who have gone to the CRTC and begged for a license in order to serve the public. Yesterday, for example, just yesterday, I saw, and I'm not going to name names, but I saw Canadian broadcasters post the following. 4 police arrested at a school on Donald Street here in Ottawa. 4 police arrested. That was the headline. It sat on this website, a Canadian licensed broadcaster, for 20 minutes. No police officers were arrested yesterday. They arrested 4 people at a school, yes, but they did not arrest police officers. But the internet is the problem? By the way, the other big thing I saw yesterday was a nationally syndicated show asking its audience. This was their big question of the day. This is the big hard-hitting thing you're getting from your licensed Canadian broadcasters adhering to Canadian content regulations. Hey, what's your favorite salad dressing? I swear to you, a syndicated across Canada show was asking that question yesterday. What is your favorite salad dressing? Further to that, part B to the equation. Do you dip your veggies in your salad dressing? Honest to God. So, how much do you value Canadian content? Okay, do you want to subsidize the CBC? Another $24 million on top of their $1.2 billion we're already giving them? Is that something you want? Okay, if no, what do you want the CBC to look like and sound like? That's my question. Bill C11. Your comments on that. Let's bring Ken on. Ken's our first video caller ever on the station. Ken, how you doing?
Not too bad, John.
And full disclosure, Ken and I are friends from, just a few years ago. We were in grade 7 together, Ken.
Well, what are we going on now? What, 35 years, I guess? Something like that?
Your
Yeah.
thoughts on Canadian content. It's, by the way, it's good to see you. Your thoughts on Canadian content. Do we need it? What what does it look like to you? What should it look like to you, Ken?
Well, I think one of the challenges that they have is, of course, is as you mentioned earlier, is defining what Canadian content is. But I think in conjunction with that, they have to define what the purpose of the CBC is now. Is the CBC truly a state broadcaster? And if it is, what does the state broadcaster actually present to the public? Is it
Family
entertainment?
Feud Canada, apparently.
Yeah. Is it entertainment? Is it sporting events? Is it news? Is it the weather? Is
Right.
it electoral debates? What do you want to do? I think those are the things that they need to define first before they get into we need more money because we need more Canadian content.
Okay. So you've just given me a list of half a dozen things. Um, what would you like the CBC to be? A news voice, an entertainment source? In your opinion, you as a tax-paying Canadian and as a viewer slash listener and consumer of their content, what would you like it to be? You're paying
Uh,
for it.
yeah, I've been saying this a lot lately that if the Canadian government wants to have a state broadcaster, fair enough, we can have a state broadcaster. But I think what it's designed specifically to do then is to be purely an information source. Is that all they do is they deliver the news, the weather, political debates and elections, things like that. Things that cover off the vast majority of the population, not things like, Family Feud Canada or, other dumb things
Murdoch
like
Mysteries.
that.
And look, so
Yeah.
you listen, okay, we just talked about the fact you and I have known each other since grade 7. So, I mean, and you're a parent, you've got kids. I'm sure you plopped them in front of the TV and they watched a lot of CBC kids programming. CBC does very well with kids programming.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that their role? Or should that
Uh,
be handed off to I mean, there's got to be I'm not a parent. I don't know, but there's got to be oodles of that stuff available on the internet.
well, everything that you see on TV is ultimately available on the internet. Yeah, yeah. My kids grew up watching things like, shows like the Doodle Bops and whatever else, which aren't Canadian made. Um, but ultimately, I think education should belong in the schools. And as you know, my wife is a teacher, so I
Did
think
not know that, but okay.
okay. I think I speak from knowledge on that side. I don't think it should be TV that is educating our kids. If they want to entertain our kids, that's great. But I don't think that would fall within the CBC's mandate as a public broadcaster.
All right. So you want CBC then, if I'm hearing you correctly, to strictly focus on here are the Canadian stories of the day and basically act like a news wheel and just rehash that and tell us what is happening in our country.
Yes.
Do you want them to weigh into political debates? Do you want them to have news and opinion when it comes to elections, etc.? Should they be involved with any of that?
Opinion? No. Broadcasting? Yes. From the sense that if you want to have a political debate, whether it be municipal, provincial, or federal, then yes, you have a moderator, let's say, that would be
So
absolutely.
Rosie's still got a job then, does she?
Well, no, because she's she's definitely skewing one way. But
You think?
you'd have to try to find that perfect person that would fit the role
Okay.
that would not be skewed either way. And I know it would be difficult in today's world, um, but at that point, you'd also have to have, just like the news or the weather, you'd have to have voices from across a whole lot of spectrum. So you'd have to have not only the traditional political people that would be up there, liberals, conservatives, NDP, but you'd have to have on maybe those other parties that maybe socially don't fall within, the standards. Maybe you'd have to have the PPC or, the Ontario Party, organizations like that that are very much on the right side of the spectrum. But you'd have to have them up there too to make sure that you're getting a balance from
Yeah,
across the spectrum.
and I'm with you. I have no problem. I think they should be there, and I think Canadians should be exposed to exactly who's out there, whether you like them or approve of them or not, and even even if they're flying, a brand that you absolutely wholeheartedly think is disgusting. Well, let's see them. Let's see who they are, and let them fly their hate, and let us stand up against that.
That's right.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Ken, thank you. And boy, we got to get a Wikipedia page going on. You just made history. You're the first video call on
Hey,
on It's Your Call. And how easy was that, Ken?
it was easy. It was a couple of clicks. I put my headset on, and the camera came up, and I clicked join the call, and it was
There
as
you go.
easy as that.
All right, and your mic's sounding better than mine. Ken, thanks for weighing in. It's your call, and this is exactly what I want is for you to be able to weigh in. I'm not necessarily going to look for an argument. In fact, I don't want an argument. I want to hear both sides, and I want to, at the end of the day, leave you with something to think about, where we sort of got to a consensus and a common ground, and maybe you heard some stuff you agree on, maybe you heard some ideas you hadn't heard before and hadn't considered, and it changes your view one way or another, and somewhere it all filters into someplace good. Ken, thanks again for calling. Good to see you,
Hey,
buddy.
thanks, Sean.
All right. Let's go to some of the comments. Andre says they should subsidize btrradio.com, the people's voice. You know what? And there was an interesting comment. Michelle said this earlier. Government should not be subsidizing any media. Michelle, I agree. And I said this yesterday. I had Joseph Ben-Ami, and I did dinner. He does a show with, if you remember, Nick at Night, was on CFRA. They do the Nick and Joe show here on BTR Wednesday nights from 8 until 10. And I said to him, and I firmly believe this to be true, regardless of who's in power in the government, whether it's the conservatives or the NDP or the liberals or as we've got now a consortium of the two, liberal and NDP, the media's role really is to be the unofficial opposition. It is the media's role to hold whoever is holding government or in power in government, hold them to account. The media's role is to be the voice of the people and ask the questions that you want answers to, regardless. And of conservative, of liberal, of it, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. And when you see private companies, especially, being given money, and look, I understand there were a lot during the pandemic. There were a lot of private companies, not just media companies, who needed government assistance. A lot of individuals needed government assistance as well to get out of a sticky situation, be able to pay their mortgages, be able to pay their bills. And, a lot of this was claimed it's going to help us avoid layoffs, etc. The media is a different ball of wax altogether, just by virtue of the fact that, like I said, I really believe, and I say this as a member of the media since 1983, it is the media's role to hold the government to account. So thank you for that comment. Let's go to text 613-604-6464. This is someone out of Alberta. I believe you're someone who follows me because of Lowell. Thank you for sticking with us. What does it actually cost to run CBC? How much of that money is going towards executive salaries and bonuses? They are asking more than we can give. You know what? That's a good question. And when I was putting my show notes together, I probably should have dug into that a little bit. How much does it cost to run? Well, $1.2 billion is apparently what we're paying per year. How much does it actually cost if we made it have to run like a private broadcaster does? It would cost significantly less than $1.2 billion. I would absolutely say, and I do say that without any question in my mind whatsoever. Joshua, that is why the media is often referred to as the fifth estate. Exactly how that show got its name. They are to act as a liaison between the public and the government and have lately often failed. And that begs the question too, right? Are they calling in favors? Listen, I know you want to up us to 40% Canadian content, but we'll do this and we'll do that if you just don't even bring that up and make it a part of our license. When there's money changing hands, you can't help but ask the question, just what favors are being called in here? Regulating the internet. It's coming your way. Forcing CanCon to the top. I don't know if I qualify as Canadian. I should. I'm sitting on Canadian territory. I'm paying taxes for this property I'm in. I'm using a Canadian internet provider. I bought my camera at a Canadian store. My microphone, well, Amazon. Does that qualify me as Canadian content? When it comes to Bill C-11, I think we're still very much in a gray area. But if you're concerned about it, find a way to get in touch with some of the senators. Get your voice heard in the Senate because they are debating that right now. And as for the CBC, I think it's been clear based on your comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, etc., and by text that we need to streamline the CBC and make it something that it is not. There you go. But was your equipment manufactured in Canada? Asks Michelle. Michelle, you ask all the hard-hitting questions. You keep that up. We're going to give you your own show here on BTR. Hey, this is called It's Your Call. Heard daily here on btrradio.com. Again, if you're going to watch on social media, we are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. I would love for you to watch us on Twitch. Twitch is an amazing platform. It started out as gamers, but here's what's cool about it. It's owned by Amazon. And if you choose BTR Radio as your favorite Twitch channel and you have Prime, Amazon will send us $5 a month on your behalf. So you're supporting the station. There you go. It is a fast 30 minutes, Chrissy. You're right. It is. And I'm willing to extend this if we get calls, if we get interaction. I believe in this big time, and I appreciate you being here for it. If you missed the show, it will be available on our YouTube channel. It will be available as well in podcast form. Go to itsyourcall.ca, and we will be back tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. Move for now.